Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
So let's have a warm welcome for our main speaker, Cubby.
Hi, I'm Cubby Selby, alcoholic. Got to make a quick 30% cut here. Anyway, I'm delighted to be here because I really do love speaking at AA meetings. And I'm an alcoholic that never drank in high school, and I never drank in college. I'm an alcoholic that never went to high school, and I never went to college. But I learned how to drink just like my educated friend over here, Jimmy. He was a slob, too. I was raised to be an English gentleman, not a gutter hype. However, alcoholism's a leveler. To try and cut it short, I love and adore alcohol. Obviously, alcohol had to do a whole lot for me to become willing to let it do so much to me, and ultimately it destroyed everything of value in my life. And I really pursued it past the gates of insanity or death. I just loved to drink. Because I've come to believe the most horrendous thing a human being can feel is to feel separated from themselves. I think all other things are bearable, but I believe it is absolutely unbearable to feel separated from yourself. And when you're born with that feeling, you have no idea that is what you're feeling until something alters that sense, and then you can have something to compare it with. And that's what booze basically did for me. It made me a holy man. It created the grand illusion I became one whole, solid, unified being, and I had a sense of peace that I never knew existed. So obviously alcohol is not my problem, it is the answer. And I left home at 15. I went to sea. I was a merchant seaman during the Second War, and by the time I was 18, I was in a hospital with TB, and they said I couldn't live more than 2 months. And by the time I was 22 years old, I had spent more than 3 years in bed. I had 10 ribs cut out. I had one lung collapsed, part of the other lung cut out. They used an experimental drug to keep me alive, and it impaired my vision, my hearing. My inner ear was almost totally destroyed, and I couldn't walk properly, and I'd fall down in the dark. All my muscles were petrified from this drug, and it destroyed whatever brain cells I had left. It fried my brain. And then things start to get bad. They really did, man. And that's a guarantee we have as drunks. No matter how bad things are, eventually drinking will make them worse. That's just a flat-out guarantee. It's a progressive illness. But I can't see where drinking is a problem in my life, because although I had no lungs, I couldn't breathe, and I was past the point of no return, It never interfered with my drinking. I always managed to drink, whether in the hospital. I was in a marine hospital. It was all merchant seamen, about 400 of us. To give you some idea, it was like you needed a doctor's prescription to get shaving lotion. we found a way to drink. Hopeless, hopeless drunk. And I knew I couldn't drink. So I had to develop a belief system of lies. I had to teach myself what is true is false and what is false is true to protect my right to drink, because I had to keep that information away from my awareness that I just can't handle booze. And the basic lie is that alcohol is the answer, not the problem. One of the things I did was use heroin to protect my right to drink. And I developed a heroin sobriety maintenance program for myself. And I stayed sober on that program for 6 years. It's one of those programs that gets a little habitual. Rather expensive, yeah. And it wasn't covered by medical insurance either. So anyway, the second step, of course, implies that we're nuts. And what I did is I left New York, I moved to Hollywood to get away from drugs. And it worked. But you see, I'm sincere. You can look at my eyes. You can tell I'm sincere. You see. To make a long story short, I got busted. I got strapped down in solitary, and I kicked my habit, which is, no frills approach to doing it. But it's guaranteed. I guarantee you, no matter what obsession you got going on for you, if you get strapped down in solitary, you'll kick the sucker, man, I'll tell you. Yeah. After a week, they asked me if I wanted to come out, and I said no. By this time, I was so tired of running those streets, and I could no longer really deny the fact that somehow I was doing me in. I couldn't connect my troubles with alcohol, but I knew that I was doing me in. I couldn't do me in that cell. So I stayed there, and after a month, they kicked me out, put me with population for a month. Someone bailed me out, put me in a hospital a month, and I was back out on the streets. In a world I've never understood, a world that's always intimidated me, a world I knew I could never make it in. And this time, I could no longer really believe in the belligerence and hostility that I always generated to hide my fear from you and from me. And I was so terrified I couldn't cross an intersection. The only thing that got me through an intersection was going for a drink. That was the only motivation that could get me across the street. And that went on for 15 months, and the woman I was living with brought home another woman with 3 kids because they had no place to live, and they moved in, and this guy used to visit this woman. And one Friday night he came and he visited with me, and I'm a blackout drinker, so I don't remember more than a total perhaps of 30 seconds of the entire night, and I think he was there all night. But I remember him coming into the room, and the next thing I remember is he got up and he walked over to me and he dropped a book in my lap. He said, "I'm tired. You read to me." And I remember putting the book on the table. That's the last thing. That's all I remember from the entire night. But it turned out I read from the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And evidently I read enough to identify with the problem and to recognize the answer. And obviously you cannot recognize an answer until you've identified the problem. And he took me to a meeting the following night, and I've been sober ever since, and that was the 29th of March, 1969. And a couple of things happened the next, 10 hours or so that forced me to believe that miracles are possible without my consent. And I am really delighted to know that, and I am very grateful to know that. Because if I had to consent to the miracle, you know where I would tell you to put it. And how far up, and how long to sit on it. But I do believe, although I don't have to consent to the miracle, I believe that I must make a conscious decision to cooperate with that miracle if I want to experience it for the rest of my life. So he took me to this meeting. I was rendered sober. The obsession to drink was removed. I've been sober since that night. I was given the gift of sobriety. And I hated everything about this meeting. I loathed and hated and detested it. And the only thing I knew absolutely at that meeting was I am not an alcoholic. Yet he took me home and I heard myself say, can I go to another meeting? And when I said that, I took the second step. Now, I had no intention of saying that, and I come to realize that I did not say that. The I that I identified as Cubby at that time did not make that statement, because I thought Cubby was this body and this mind, and all the thoughts, those hideous, bestial monstrosities that went through my head, I thought that was me. I thought that defined me. So naturally, I didn't have myself in very high regard. But there's so much more to me. There is, at the very least, an inner self, an inner spirit. And that spoke the words through me, because that inner self recognized the power in that room that could restore us to sanity. And so it spoke those words through me. And I took the second step. Now, the next morning, I got up and I started my day in the usual way. I started a fight with this woman I was living with in order to justify storming out of the house and getting drunk. And that's exactly what I did. I went storming out of the house. I was standing on a corner waiting to cross the street, and that same voice that's been screaming at me all my life was screaming at me that morning, and it said, I'll show her, I won't drink, I'll stay sober. And my body turned around and went back to the house, and that morning the second step took me. I was restored to sanity, and I've been totally and absolutely sane with respect to alcohol since that moment. I have been mad as a hatter most of my sobriety. My sobriety has been much worse than my drinking. Far more painful, far more disastrous in every and just about every outer way. Of course, the inner life has been infinitely enriched, indescribably and exquisitely enriched, but my outer life is just a horrendous disaster as far as I'm concerned. So, excuse me. So I'm standing in this corner, and I'm rendered sane. And how I define sanity is very simple. I can no longer believe the lies necessary to believe in order to justify taking the first drink. I could no longer believe that drinking would improve the quality of my life in any way. I was absolutely sane with respect to alcohol, and I still am to this very moment. I do not limit the sanity available through the second step and the entire program to just that. But obviously, if you're alcoholic without that foundation of sanity, no other form and or degree of sanity is possible. So I'm given the gift of sobriety. The obsession to drink is removed, and I don't drink. Not that I try not to, I just don't drink. And at the end of 30 days, I'm stark raving sober. As we all know, there is only one thing worse than drinking, and that's not drinking. And that is precisely why we are here. And the book is very clear and explicit about that. The problem is in the mind. See, the reason for that is you take away the most important thing in someone's life, you must replace it with something of value. Nature cannot and will not accept a vacuum. Alcohol had become the most important thing in my life. When you take alcohol out of my life, I'm left with that dark, black, cancerous sense of separation that I started with. If you don't replace it with something of value, I must drink. I have no choice in the matter. I am powerless over alcohol. And alcohol is the only thing in my memory that has ever appeared to heal that unbearable sense of separation. And I believe Alcoholics Anonymous is that something of value that fills that hole and fulfills every need I shall ever have for the rest of my life. So after 30 days of not drinking, this inner self made the decision that we must cooperate with this miracle. And I took the necessary action. I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I asked for help, and the help was instantly and automatically there. And the reason for that is like everything I've learned here. It's so simple and so obvious I can't see it. I am capable of seeing and understanding a lot of things. The one thing that gives me a problem is the simple and obvious. That seems to be invisible to me. But the reason that the help was instantly and automatically there is very simple. Because the answer is in the asking. You cannot have a problem without already having the answer. It is a spiritual impossibility to have a problem without having the answer. But I still have this belief system of lies that I nurtured and developed to protect my right to drink, so I am unaware of already having what it is I am so desperately looking for. But when I go up to you and say, help me, tell me what to do, I've given up, I've surrendered. Oh, thanks, sweetheart. You're a doll. Oh. God, it's even wet. Tell me what to do. I've surrendered, and the answer is able to transcend that belief system of lies. And then when you share with me what you did at that point in your sobriety, you make it possible for me to recognize the answer in whatever way I need to stay sober for the next 24 hours. So after 30 days, I asked for help, and I was given the gift of recovery. Now, almost out of time, I'm face to face with this third step, and the kindest thing I ever said about God is that it's dog spelled backwards. After my last operation, I was in a coma for 4 days, and at some point in that period, I opened my eyes as a chaplain walked in the room, and I stayed conscious long enough, maybe 3 seconds, just long enough to shake my head no and watch him leave, because I knew he was there to give me the hocus pocus, and I didn't have anything to do with it. I was determined that if I died, I was going to die giving God the finger. And if there was such a thing called God, I couldn't wait to die so I could meet it, spit in its face, and tell it what I thought of it. I've been told that's an attitude. I thought I was such a nice guy. And AA is the only place I know of where you can bring an attitude like mine, which I guess is a bit hostile, and have it turned into a love affair, not by going to church, not by taking religious instructions or studying theology or dogma or metaphysics or psychology, but by not taking one drink, one day at a time, and hanging out with a bunch of sober drunks. And that's exactly what happened to me. Anyway, I didn't know what to do about this third step. And I hear people talking about prayer. You got to pray. And I had a negative attitude about it. But my inner self is desperate. We've got to stay sober. So I ended up copying the third step prayer from the book in the St. Francis prayer, and I tacked them on the wall. I wake up in the morning, I read these suckers, go about my business, and then read them at night. Then everyone said, you have to kneel and pray. And I said, oh, my God. And see, I still don't know that I want to be sober, yet I'm so desperate to stay sober, I tried to kneel and pray. 20 and 30 times a day I tried it, and I couldn't do it. My knees just would not bend. And then when I was sober 4 months, I took the fifth step. When I finished, my sponsor showed me the pages in the book to read that tell you exactly what to do for 6 and 7. I went home, did as the book suggests, and when I had taken the sixth step, I was made aware of it. And I've come to believe that the essence of the sixth step is simply that when there's no longer a payoff in the defect, I'm willing to let it go. It seems to me that all my life, I've believed that I could separate pleasure from pain, and that I could avoid pain by pursuing pleasure, and always wondering how I always ended up miserable. I never, see, like I said, I can't see the simple and obvious. I can't see that pleasure and pain are one and the same thing. It's like I would never think of going in the store and trying to spend just the heads of a nickel. It never occurs to me to try and do that. I'd give them the whole nickel. Yet I think I can separate pleasure from pain. It's impossible. The only difference is perception. There's a point in my life where the greatest pleasure, joy, heavenly, exquisite gongs go off is taking a drink. Oh, man. Oh. I reach a point where there's nothing more devastating or cruel or vicious in my life than taking a drink. Same substance, same action, different perception. Can't separate pleasure from pain. I don't hold on to the pain of resentment, but what I hold on to is the pleasure of judgment. Thinking I can judge you, and then, now she tells me, you asked for it. Thinking I can judge you, wake up in the middle of the night with pain and resentment and sweat and cramps, and get on my knees and hocus pocus God. I can't stand this pain. Help! Don't bother me, schmuck. Get out of my face. You know what I mean? If I don't judge you, I can't resent you. It's just that simple. I want to get rid of a God of punishment, right? Everybody in their hind legs wants to get rid of that garlic-chewing, miserable son of a bitch. You know? The one that remember when you were a kid and he kept score every time you masturbated? You know? Now they got these calculators. Jesus Christ. They ring bells. They wink eyes. So, but it doesn't occur to me the only way I can let go of a God of punishment is if I'm willing to let go of a God of rewards. Well, who wants to do that, right? And no good deed goes unpunished. If I hold on to a God of rewards, I will find a God of punishment. But when there's no value in the defect, I found them, I'm willing to let it go. So when I take the 6th step, I was made aware of it. And without thinking, I was on my knees taking the 7th step. And that day I was given a gift of prayer. And I've come to believe the gift of prayer is the most precious thing we're given by whatever this power is that created us. With the gift of prayer, it takes on a living reality in our lives. And I know from my experience as the prayer that there is nothing to get, there's only everything to give. And I believe AA is the perfect place for me to give everything away. I also know that it's only in the process of giving it away that I become aware of having it in the first place. Until that moment, I'm convinced I don't have it, I can't do it. I don't have it, I can't do it. And as soon as I get it, I'll be willing to give it away. It's only in the process of doing it that I become aware of the fact that I can do it. You can't get ready for these things. Try getting ready to be sober. You either drink yourself to death or you don't get sober. Period. You don't get ready for it. And I also know from my experiences the prayer I don't pray to God, that's not a bloody thing to pray to, but I pray from God. And it's all totally an inside job. And I believe the prayer that mends the broken hearts and heals the sick minds that we all bring to Alcoholics Anonymous is the song of love we sing to this thing called God. I believe that song is heard in every heart throughout the world and heard throughout the entire universe. And with steps 10 and 11, we can not only sit and hear that song, but experience the simple truth that in all of the universe there's only one song, and we are that song. All of God's kids are that song, each and every note just as important as the other. And obviously you change one note and you change the song. So, 7th step, I was given a gift of prayer. The 9th step, I was given a gift of love. When I was 6 months sober, I became aware of the fact I'd fallen in love with this thing called God. Now, as I said, I've been given up for dead 4 times in the hospital, many times in the street, and the only thing that kept me alive was what I thought was my hatred for God. And 6 months with you, it turned into a love affair. And I didn't understand it, but later I read AA Comes of Age. In the back of the book, they quote an old Spanish philosopher. It's a simple line that explained my entire life. Those who deny God deny him because of their despair at not finding him. I read that the first time and I understood my entire life. I understood absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. An old axiom says the holiest ground in the world is where an ancient hatred has been turned into a current love. So because of what has happened for me in Alcoholics Anonymous, wherever I am standing on the holiest ground in the world. And I believe it is impossible to take the first 9 steps without standing on the holiest ground in the world. It may take you as long as it took me to become aware of it, but if you make those decisions and you take those actions, it's an inevitable and predictable result of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, with the 12th step, I have this great gift, my own personal relationship with whatever this power is that created me. Now, this is not somebody's concept of God. This is not some institution's concept of God. It's not my concept of God. What this is a power of infinite and unconditional love that has revealed itself to me from within me as a direct result of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And wherever I am, all of this power is. I can never have less than everything there is. But of course, the nature of obsession is to want more than there is. Yeah. And again, because of this belief system of lies that I nurtured, I am unaware of already having what it is I am so desperately looking for. So for me, what this process is a case of uncovering the lies of that belief system, discarding those lies, and discovering the truth in whatever manner or form it may present itself to me at any particular moment. Now, I obviously thought that I have a spiritual awakening and I would become God's little sunbeam. I became a maniac. Demonic. Let me see if I can rush. I battled my demons for many years until I realized that I had to learn to honor my demons and not battle them in order to understand they were not demons in the first place. But until that time, it was impossible to live with me. Anyway, after being together for 15 years, my wife had to leave. We were in Massachusetts at the time, and I had been sick for 5 years, had no money. We had absolutely nothing. I lost my physical health, my ability to work. And our son, who was 12, elected to stay with me. We came back here and stayed with a friend until I got on welfare. And I got on welfare, and I got us a little 2-room apartment. When Billy and I moved into that apartment, we had 2 suitcases each. He had an old army cot somebody gave him to sleep on, and I had a piece of foam rubber to sleep on. That was the extent of our stuff. I was 14 years sober. I was a single parent on welfare, and to this day, I don't know how I survived those years. I'd get up in the morning, make him breakfast, we'd pray, we'd meditate. He'd go to school, and I'd sit there and cry. I just said, no way you're dealing with my life. Somehow I didn't drink. I went to meetings, and I helped drunks. And then I experienced the fellowship in a way I never had before, because you literally fed us, you clothed us. Everything necessary for life came from the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I used to draw a very clear and distinct distinction between the program and the fellowship, and I can no longer do that. You either are the program or it doesn't exist. You either are God or God does not exist. For me, it's that simple. So that Christmas, I didn't know what to do for Bill. It seemed so unfair that a 12-year-old boy shouldn't have a Christmas because I was just out of my mind. And what we ended up doing was going to Skid Row and serving food to the people. And it was one of the greatest days of my life because he was so happy making sure the kids got extra pie and extra milk that he literally lit up all of Skid Row. And I was overwhelmed with a sense of wonder and privilege and honor to be part of such a magnificent human being and spirit as Bill. And we did that each Christmas while we were together. And one day my wife called and said she was in love with someone else, and by that time I was so hollow and empty inside I couldn't cry. There was just nothing left. I've never had pain like that in my life. I've had a lot of physical pain, years and years, but I've never had a pain like that. And then something most remarkable happened. One morning I was praying for my wife, and I heard myself thanking God that she had someone to love, that she had someone to share her life with, to share her body with, to share her program with, and to share her God with. And it precipitated the most powerful experience I've ever had. Now, I know I am not capable of sitting down and formulating such a prayer, but I don't have to. I simply have to make the decision to love and then take the appropriate action. In this case, it was prayer. And this is what I believe happened. I believe your love for me wrote that prayer. And you not only wrote that prayer, but you put the words in my heart, so that when my heart broke with her leaving, my heart broke open. It broke open, and I could speak those words and experience the results of that prayer. See, when I got here like everyone else, insulated and isolated in the eye of alcoholism. And I get here, and the very first word of the program is we. We admit it. We not only admit each other to these rooms, but we admit each other to our hearts. Instantly, the I of my disease starts to become a part of the we of Alcoholics Anonymous. And as we continue to practice the principles of this program, we experience the one, the oneness of all life, from I to we to one. When I got here, you did not judge me by the appearance of my illness. You saw beyond the crazed, drunken beast that I believed I was. Beyond that, you saw a sober being, and within that sober being, you saw light, and you saw love, and you held that image of me in your mind as you nurtured me, you loved me, and most importantly of all, you allowed me to make every mistake I must make in order to learn what I need to learn to stay sober for the next 24 hours. And more as I continue to come back to you, I am becoming the image that you have of me, as you are becoming the image that I have of you. And together we are becoming the vision that God has of us. Thank you very much.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.